Well, I don't know where we've had an exciting playoff. I've had some disappointments. The most significant of which is the Raptors' demise. I didn't see this coming. I mean, I was sold a bill of goods by a lot of people, including colleagues of mine on this august show. However, they went down in flames, and that's too bad. I don't think it's time to make light of them. Something went wrong, and people were saying they're the worst-looking team that they've ever seen in a playoff. And the coaching, which I thought was a major feature, seemed to take a real pounding. So that's too bad for the Raptors, but it tells you something. Don't draw your conclusions in any sport from Game 1 to Game 80. Get it going about Game 85, see how they're doing. And I genuinely feel badly for the Raptors because I thought they would do better. And, of course, they must have thought the same way because they had reason to think that way based on their play. And they just weren't there and weren't ready to take on the Wizards in any way, shape, or form. It's too bad. Another failure for MLS&E and its august board and its ne'er-do-well chairman of the same.
To follow up on Bill's comments on the Raptors, you never want to peak too early into, that's what Bill was sort of saying with, games 1 to 80, but the Raptors were, 21-7 at one point this year. They were the first seed in the East. They were battling with Atlanta. They beat Cleveland early in the year. They beat Atlanta in 3 of the 4 regular season games. They were doing a lot of very good things, and then something did happen, and they're being very vague about it. I mean, when you listen to the players, they all admit that there was something missing. Gravis Vasquez says we need an asshole on this team like Paul Pierce. Dwane Casey said, while Kyle Lowry says he wasn't hurt, Kyle Lowry wasn't in shape after his back injury. He's got to drop weight. He's got to come back into camp with more hunger and sort of in better form. And I don't know what to make of the exit interviews. It just, I heard things from the Raptors like we were mentally drained. How on earth can you be mentally drained in the first round of the playoffs when you're playing your entire season to get to this point? This is when you're supposed to elevate your game. And for them to say we just didn't have anything in the tank by Game 4, that is very alarming. That a team with such lofty expectations that has won a division 2 years in a row could make the excuses they made and say what they said and not give any answers. Everything was vague. There's a problem, but what's the problem? No one knows what that problem is. Paul Pierce was right. They lacked that it factor, and it was really embarrassing to watch them go up in flames in the playoffs.
I'll give you my take on it, and my take starts right with Masai Ujiri. Any president, general manager, figurehead of a major sports organization that feels the need to stand up and swear to make a point, to me, is the problem right there. They do not have the proper leadership right at the top. He chose not to make any moves at the deadline, wanted to keep the chemistry there. It was so obvious that this team was going in the wrong direction. You talked about Kyle Lowry and his injuries that they gave him a few days off here and there. There's something seriously the matter with that entire organization. Bill, you pointed as often you do, not as often, but you find fault with MLSE and specifically the ownership. To me, this is a critical, it reminded me so much of what happened with the Leafs and against Boston. They were so close, they thought they were so close, and they left the team like it was, and look what happened. The exact same scenario with the Leafs. To me, they have got to overhaul this team big time. The president, general manager, whatever you want to call him, Masai Ujiri, needs to show a little bit more class and professionalism when he's standing up in front of the public. Paul Pierce was bang on what he said. They do not have a Paul Pierce in their lineup. They don't have anything close to it. Now they have to rebuild, and you're talking about, does Kyle Lowry have a problem with the coach? Now there's innuendos about that. There are so many issues with this team right now. They won in a very lackluster division. Do you honestly believe, and when they beat Cleveland wasn't anything close to what they are now? I honestly believe if they played Cleveland, the exact same result would have happened. That's my take. This team has a ton of issues. They're going to have to overhaul their entire lineup. They don't have anything right now that you could say, keep that guy there.
But is it fair to say, Perry, and all of what you said obviously is reflective of somebody who has pretty close following of that group, and I didn't. But this was a shock to me. I didn't see this coming at all. I knew Lowry had been hurt, but I thought that, you know, he's back in the lineup. He will be a difference maker. And for him not to be a difference maker and then take it out on the coach, I think they may have made a mistake signing Lowry.
Yeah, and a lot of mistakes have been made. Now, you know, you go into next year, and a lot of contracts are up in the air. You know, a guy like Lou Williams, who did have a good year off the bench, you know, what are you going to do with him? How are you going to re-up with him? They have to upgrade. They need more toughness. They need a guy that can rebound. They need a sandpaper guy, like what people have been saying, Paul Pierce. You know, back when they did have success, you know, they've won one playoff series in franchise history. It was a best-of-5 series against the Knicks. And, you know, on that team, you had guys like Antonio Davis, and you had guys like Charles Oakley. You know, guys that are gritty, that have that sandpaper element to them. There's no one on the Raptors that really you feel like you can go to war with. There's no guy there that's been through the battles, that understands what it takes, that knows how to elevate their game when you get to the playoffs, that understands that, you know, you got to have each other's back. You know, the Raptors, when their backs were against the wall in Game 4, that performance was abysmal. Nobody gave a fuck. And I don't like to use that kind of language, but it's true. No one could care less about that. They just got blown out. They weren't in it. They weren't mentally in it. There was nothing that tells you that this team. I mean, look at other teams that have been down 3-0 in the playoffs. The Ottawa Senators down 3-0, gave it everything they had to win 2 games, and could have won Game 6 if Gary Price doesn't stand on his head. You know, the Milwaukee Bucks down 3-0 to the Bulls. They win a Game 4 at home and a buzzer beater. Go to Chicago, win a game. You know, teams that are backs against the wall, they want to say, hey, beating us the 4th time is going to be the hardest thing you have to do. The Raptors, it was the easiest. And that is a real problem, that there right now is no heart with this basketball team.
You know, I'm not around that team every single day, but, you know, I've been listening to reporters who are around that team talk about, you know, there's problems there that they saw every single day. And, you know, disharmony, or at least discontent between the star player and the coach. And, you know, as long as the team is winning, it's okay. But now look how badly they finished. Not so much the Game 4, because they'd already packed it in before that. Yep. This is a team, you know, that basically had problems down the stretch, physical problems, mental problems, whatever it was. As I said to you before, people that are around there enough knew what was going on, but now you really see it, the flood come through in a situation like that, where they were just overwhelmed. They were beaten by a better team. And Bill, you could talk about this. Often in hockey they talk about, and Pat Quinn probably said this many times, a team that was built for the playoffs. Because in the playoffs, the refereeing changes. They let so much stuff go. The Raptors, to me, are a very soft team. They play on the perimeter. They don't know how to get it inside. And if Washington was a team that kind of was playing so-so, you know, in the second half of the season, and people were talking about the coach getting fired, well, they showed up as a playoff team, a team built for the playoffs. Bill, talk to me about that, because often I see this in hockey and I wonder why a team is built for the playoffs. Does that mean that when, again, things start to change, the referees don't call as much, that's what it means for a team built for the playoffs?
Well, it used to. I don't think it does as much anymore, but you still have to be built to play in tough situations. And it's a given that a playoff series is much tougher than 7 games in the middle of December. And so you have to have that type of player. But listening to you and Eric talk about the situation with the Raptors, it reminds me very much of the Maple Leafs.
Doesn't it? And think about specifically one particular player with the Leafs and one particular player with the Raptors, and tell me the situations aren't any different.
Yeah, that's right. And they both happen to be the highest paid players on the team. And after that, you don't have anybody that can bring one of them to attention. I mean, Kessel spent most of the year doing nothing, and nobody confronted him. Nobody.
There's seriously a lack of accountability in the city. Players, you know, listen.
Eric, I don't agree. I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be because it's Toronto. It has to be because of the people that are running it.
Right, but I guess you know why I say it is because, you know, I live in the city, and I've lived here for a couple decades, and I see
lived there for 50 years, and I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
but
I see it year after year here.
Yeah, well, I was there from 1993 from 1991 to 2003, and I can tell you there was accountability there 10 of those 12 years.
Right.
And that's a lot more than anybody's ever gotten out of that group outside of Punch Imlach. And now we're going back 60 years. See, it's pretty hard to relate to that stuff. But I can tell you that the basketball team has been spoiled from day one. And you don't have to look up who ran it, who was the chairman of the basketball team, and all the favors went to the basketball team, including the best player's mother had special tickets.
Her own parking spot. Her own parking spot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I mean, it's a joke.
Well, here's
and
another.
The same thing now has transpired to the point where the whole organization is satiated with it. They're just satiated with it. What about our man? The guy they hired from Los Angeles. Yeah. Basketball and soccer were his games.
Yeah, Tim Lewicki, you're right, was supposed to be the savior. And it's funny because you think back to all these men that are supposed to be the savior, right? Like Brian Burke was supposed to be the savior of the Leafs. Then, it was Alex Anthopoulos with the Blue Jays, Masai Ujiri with the Raptors. You bring up obviously guys like, Larry Tannenbaum, whatever. They've all come in. They've all made these rah-rah, we're going to do this, we're going to fix this. Tim Lewicki, same thing. And then it's the same result year after year. And it's just so frustrating because it just looks like there is no end in sight for nothing but failure for all these teams.